back in the studio. Of course, we have to break to the cheesy fucking sign till I remember to actually do something and get the fucking thing up on whatever. But that'll work for now. Black it in. That's all you need to know. Probably less than you want to need to know. But anyway, fuck it. And then, oh, did I put an addition up here? I remember my buddy Little Nut had made that nice little sign for me there. So yeah, got that on there. All right. Let's try to get back into, gee, it's a road story day. And, well, road story, I got a good one here. Okay. So anyway, welcome back to 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse for another road story. And it sort of all blends in together, road stories, hustling, liquidators, right, but it all blends in together. So anyway, I was still working as a mechanic and hustling on the side. So things happened there where people would, I get my merchandise drop off sometimes there from certain people that my boss didn't like, but anyway, fuck it. But when I first moved into this town, I was pumping gas after hours, and this guy with a white Mustang pulled in, and his name was Charlie Sabatini, a.k.a. Sabu. And he goes, "Hi, you new here?" And I go, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, I'm the local pot dealer. And he proceeded to show me his wares, which I thought was a huge fucking pair of balls going back then, but then that was the mentality of that whole area. So we knew each other. So one day I'm working, he came in to get gas, and he's got a bundle of comic books on the back seat of his car. And I'm like, "Where'd you get that?" And he goes, "Oh, I work down there, Hudson News. They throw these in shred them and stuff." And I'm like, "They throw that shit away?" And he goes, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "We could make some money if you want to give me that bundle and let me show it to somebody." So he gives me this bundle. And I knew this guy who had a store in Montclair called Montclair Books. And he was another sort of hustler, but he was a lot more shady than anybody I'd ever met at that point. You see, going back to the whole book club thing, where you basically agreed to pay a whole bunch of fucking money for books after you got 6 free or some shit like that. Anyway, what this guy would do was he'd recruit these out-of-work housewives and stuff and have them subscribe to the book club and order the stuff that he wanted. And then they'd keep getting, the book of the month, and then, basically all kinds of threatening mail and shit like that. But back then, it didn't pay to keep the records that long because there was no computers or anything like that back then. It was all whatever. So 6 months, the whole account would disappear. You could start all over again. But that's the scammy thing with him. So I approached him. I told him, "Look," I said, "I might be able to get a lot of these. You interested?" And he goes, "How much?" I said, $10 a bundle, knowing he would talk me down. So we agreed at 8, and I said, "I'm going to probably get 100 bundles. So I get back to Sab, and I say, "Okay, get 100 bundles, but don't get all the same fucking ones." So use my truck, we get this stuff, bring it up there. We basically split it 50-50, $400 a piece. And next day he calls me up asking to borrow $100. And I'm like, "Why do you need $100 when we just made 400 a piece?" "I blew all the money." I said, "What'd you blow all the money on?" "Well, I went to the track and then I picked up a hooker." I said, "You picked up a hooker?" I go, "What'd she do, charge you by the pound?" Because that was about 300 something pounds. So all right, I lent him the $100. Next deal, we did a couple more deals. I got my money back. Then all of a sudden, he can't do it anymore. Something's going on. I said, "All right. I've been doing this long enough to know that shit sometimes only lasts for a brief moment. Sometimes it goes on way longer than it should, then you get in trouble." And like I said, like this, it just fucking ended. I accepted it ended, moved on to other things. A couple months later, I get a phone call in the middle of the night from the guy at Montclair Books, ranting and raving, "You got to tell Charlie to stop bringing this shit up here." I'm like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I'm not even involved in this stuff." I said, "You mean you've been dealing with him, and in other words, you went around me to deal with him?" And he's going back and forth with this. I said, "Dude, no, wrong." I said, "I don't know nothing going on." And what I found out later was, I guess, he backdoored me. Charlie went around me, told me it was no good, went up there with a bunch of shit, and then the guy, seeing I wasn't around, chewed him down at like $5 a bundle, and threw the shit in his window and put up a big signed comic book sale. And then I guess the DC detectives or something, it was DC Comics, must have followed the idiot up there and they got busted. So that was that. Had nothing to do with it, told him to fuck off. But the saga doesn't end because Sab not only was dealing pot, but he started making PCP. And that was when the shit was really bad. And he was one of his own best customers for any of this shit. He became completely unstable and he had a partner when they were making the shit and they had a falling out. And then his partner went to his house with 5 gallons of gas that he picked up at the Shell station right on the corner, because Sab lived around the corner, and started splashing the house with fucking gas, and then went back and asked for a book of matches, and then somebody was alert to this whole thing and called the cops and stopped it. But anyway, this idiot's dealing this shit in a local bar next to my father's drugstore called Wee Willie's. And Wee Willie wasn't too happy about this shit and it told him to stay out. Now, Wee Willie was a former boxer. Think of Andre the Giant, but a little shorter, that type of build. So he caught him in there one night and Sab turned around and says, "You got the balls to kick me out?" And Willie just beat the mortal shit out of him. They said he just pounded him, because Sab was all whacked on PCP. It didn't register at first. So at that point, I had a store down the street, Leonard's Variety. I had 3 stores. This was the first one, and it's the one that tanked first. Yeah, the whole thing is, you think when you're selling stuff and you have a good following, that if you set up in a regular stationary location, that your customers will follow. Well, they fucking didn't, and that was the end of that. But anyway, the day after he gets the beat down, he staggers into my store. I mean, he was all fucked up, black and blue, completely fucked up. Muttering and screaming, "This isn't right, we gotta make this right, this and that and the other thing." Well, he starts heading out and waddling up the street toward my old man's store. Well, then he goes in my old man's store, and there was this cop, Jimmy Sett, hanging out talking to my father out of uniform. So Sab's in there ranting and raving, and Jimmy knew Sab, and knew Sab was fucking nuts and shit, was pretty much ignoring him until Sab reached into his fucking jacket, screaming, "I'm gonna get even with everybody, I'll use this to get even." He's got a whole fucking bag of little PCP packets. Jimmy looks at him and goes, "You're a fucking asshole, now I gotta arrest you." So now Sab starts to run. Now Jimmy was no lightweight either. Jimmy jumps on his back, Sab shakes him off, runs up the street, ditches the shit, then they call for more cops. He was home free and clear. He came back to get the shit, then they grabbed him. They had him basically strapped down on a fucking gurney with a straitjacket on in front of the bar, and one of the drunks walked out, and by that time I had gotten there. And one of the drunks walked out, looked at him, he goes, "That's the shit you're trying to sell us? That's the shit that's supposed to be so fucking good?" He goes, "Well, look what it did to you." And Sab looked up at him and goes, "You people don't understand how much trouble you're really in." And that was that. They locked him up. I don't know what the fuck the deal was. I know he went away for 5 years, and then I found out he had gotten out and cleaned up, and I don't know where he was. I guess he was working somewhere in North Jersey, and he passed away. I think he was like 46 years old. So, yeah, it's weird. It's fucking sad that a lot of these guys just got so wrapped up in the really bad shit that, that happens. But that was a merchandise deal that went incredibly south. But, I didn't get hurt, but somebody got greedy. And unfortunately, I found out a long time ago, when you get greedy doing stupid shit, that's when you get caught. So, until next show, stay safe. Thanks for subscribing, thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flip side.